Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, international speaker, author, and founder of Believe University, Nick Dillon. Hey, what you drinking? Man, I'll tell you, it is so intentional that we have this conversation right now. I think the universe is intending for us to have this conversation because I just mentioned to my wife 2 days ago, I said, you know, what's kind of interesting right now is every time I make a major investment in my business, I mean, major to the point where it causes me to pause, right? This is more than just like a $49, let me order this book, right? It's like something with a comma in it where you're like, okay. But as soon as I make that investment, I kid you not, within 24 to 48 hours, I get a contract or I get some influx of money that either equals the amount of that investment or supersedes the amount of that investment, as if the universe was saying, just ride with me, right? just ride with me. And to hear you say basically the same kind of thing really just encourages me that I am on a well-trodden path. So, hey, I want to get into this part here because you jumped in and started dropping gems all over the floor. So we couldn't get into this the way I normally do. But I would love for you to comment and help me define from your perspective how the three elements of this podcast connect. Whiskey, jazz, and leadership makes sense to me literally. It also makes sense to me metaphorically. I know you're not a whiskey drinker per se, but how does that metaphor fit with how you have seen your life unfold and how you've been able to achieve some of the success that you've achieved?
Oh, thank you for that. So I'm gonna just go out on a limb and metaphorically think and just talk through this. And when I think whiskey and just my knowledge of it, sometimes whiskey goes down smooth, sometimes whiskey don't go down so smooth. Okay? And so I equate that to life in general is a toss-up. And so in order to get to where we need to be, we're going to have to be uncomfortable. And at some point, it's going to have to burn. And so to your point in your example, sometime life and this pursuit of excellence that we're in order to see what we're really capable of and really understand what we can truly aspire to, it's got to burn. It can't burn sometimes at the low level, because if I'm trying to go high, you might have to reach up for one of them 10-year-old, 12-year-old, and beyond whiskeys. But I might have to reach just that deep, and I might have to invest just that hard. I might have to trust somebody I don't think I want to trust because the universe is sending me that way, and God is saying, hey, I know this is not the normal orthodox way of doing it, but this is the way I need you to do it. But once we're able to do that and just marinate in it for a little bit, because when you get the whiskey, as you're doing right there, you don't just get it and drink it like a shot all the time. Sometimes you got to let it just circle around in there and just slowly do what you got to do. Well, that's just learning the game, understanding the game, learning the game. But in that learning, I'm also learning me. I'm also learning, man, I didn't have this. I didn't know, that uneasiness gave me some insight of me and who I am and who I aspire to be. And I'm discovering some things. But what it also does is it's increasing my network and net worth. And so I'm expanding. I'm becoming more inquisitive. I'm becoming more curious. And when that happens, it moves us in the jazz phase. And the jazz phase allows you to lay back and kind of let it flow in a nice little ebbs and flows of the business, and does what it wants to do, and the ebbs and flows of life in you. And so I often say this is where I can reflect on my life lessons. And when things happen, I can reach back and say, yeah, you know what? I remember that was a whiskey moment. And I remember how I made it through that whiskey moment, because that was one of those moments that got me to where I am now. And so those peaks and valleys and those highs and lows within that jazz really is the smooth in and out. So we pivoting, we move, and we learning the pieces to the playbook, and we're doing what we got to do. And it allows you to really have skin in the game, if you will, because if you in the jazz room, they already know you've been through you done had that whiskey, you know. But you're not in that jazz room on in the beginning. But once you in that jazz room, they know where you done. They know you paid your dues. They know why, because your language changes. How you
Mm.
show up changes. Your mindset is different. You taking risks like you wouldn't have taken. But why? Because I done felt the burn in the back of my throat already. I done felt the sting of, and when I say that, I mean, in this business, those who's listening, we know the moments when it was lean and mean, but you still persevered and made it through. When that it looked like it was that last swig in the jar, but you knew you still had to drink it. You did it though, and because you allowed yourself to test yourself and get there, you can really flow now. So the season of my life that I am at now in is, I would say, that jazz season. And it allows me to give of myself in purpose, give up myself philanthropy, give up myself in service to others, and be able to share and be open and honest and authentic and real about what this business is about growing leaders, about growing people, about just helping people live their highest and best life. And that last bit, leadership, I look at it this way. Now it's intentional living.
Mm.
And the intentional living is taking on mentorship. So I mentor some folks out there that want to be in the game. I get to coach and mentor leaders, and I get to, coach and mentor my own children, and to be able to be on that side and say, hey, no, this is probably something that you need to do. I want you to go this way so you don't have to, have these different hurdles in front of you. Why? Because you're speaking through experience.
Mm.
And that experience allows you to be able to do that, but it allows you to build an influence that is unbelievable. But it's a process. And I think to say the whiskey, jazz, and leadership is a metaphor that should let the listening audience know that to get to that end goal, it's always going to be a process. But it's going to be some lean and mean times. And it's going to be a process of, hey, it's going to sting, it's going to burn, it's going to hurt. You're not going to like you. You're not going to like some things you got to go through. You may not even like some people. But when you grow through that, not just go through, when you grow through that, you're going to be a stronger, wiser, better individual in the end. And you're going to be believing like you never believed before.
Oh my gosh. You guys see the folks I came up with. You see what was happening in that classroom. Now, I mean, Michelle Neverez, she has some great content, but it was the conversations after the classroom where you really got a sense as to the folks that you were in the room with. And this is exactly what I was getting from Nick Dillon. Although I don't know that you were fully at this point yet. There was still some growing that between then and now. But man, I'll tell you, you are just laying down gems all over the place. I want to bring in one of your favorite, your favorite jazz musicians is Kirk Whalum. And I'm going to tell you, I became familiar with Kirk Whalum as being one of the dudes making it happen. I think I probably found him maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and he was one of the young cats at the time that was making it happen. And so I appreciated where he was. I think I may have had like one of his albums, one of his CDs back then. But I really began to really appreciate Kirk Whalum at a different level when he came out with this album, The Gospel According to Jazz, where he was, I don't even know how to describe it, but he was blending genres in a way that I hadn't experienced before. And it took me a while to even be able to describe what I was experiencing. Talk a little bit about why Kirk Whalum is one of your favorite jazz musicians.
Great question. I'm going to share some things I probably never shared on a podcast before, so this is going to be interesting. First of all, I love adult contemporary music. And so what appealed of his music and his jazz was his adult contemporary feel and sound. And to your point, for his ability to be able to not be placed in a box, but to be able to, Kirk can give you country jazz. He can give you, smooth jazz. He can give you blues jazz and adult contemporary. And so I love that. I've seen him a couple times in concert. But what also was appealing to me is I would listen to Kirk Whalum and I would write. And people don't know this, but I have written probably 200 songs and a lot of poetry. And I actually have a CD on iTunes. And at one point in the game, I wanted to actually be a writer, a songwriter, and met with some very high up folks in the industry, going back and forth. And ultimately, I think I ultimately knew too much and researched too much in the game. And because I had submitted all of my writings to the Library of Congress, I think that's the reason why I didn't get a writing deal, because I had done the work for myself, so no one would
Hmm.
take advantage of me. And the industry wanted to, and so it just didn't work out. But I love just the soothingness of jazz. And he is one of my favorite, just mellow out zoning, musicians, besides just loving the saxophone.
Man. And then, we talk about your invisible board of directors. And I love asking people who are the folks who inspire you. Now, you got some leadership icons on this list that does not surprise me, right? Because you can't go very far in this leadership space without stumbling over or mentioning the name John Maxwell. It's just you can't. I don't know that you could do that. There's a few names that are like that, but John Maxwell is usually on the Mount Rushmore of leadership dudes. Talk to me a little bit about who's on your invisible board of directors and why.
Yes, thank you for that. John Maxwell is huge. Had an opportunity to go through mentorship with him and learned so much about leadership, organizational development, but more importantly, personal leadership. And others on that invisible board of directors would be my mom, my wife, individuals that I believe support the mission, vision, value of me. And so one of the things that I committed to myself when I found my voice and allowed myself to be heard and started believing in myself was that I would align myself with people, if you will, on this journey of purpose who support that in me, and be open to sharing what that vision looks like and taking the feedback, the recommendations, the suggestions to help me pivot and grow and learn to get there. And so anyone who, I'm big on those who've been there before I have. and who can give me the advice of, hey, you should do this, you should do that. And I remember when I first started entrepreneurship, probably in the late 90s, and an individual that I was working for as a consultant, his first bit of advice to me, and I think he's deceased now, but he was a corporate executive. He told me, when you start your business, and I was early on in business, and he said, when you start your business, one of the things that I want you to remember is, don't have any one contract with more than 25 to 30% of where your revenue comes from. Now, this was in the 90s, but I remember that to this day. And so as I've grown my business, and yes, with businesses, you can have situations where a client could make a big portion of your revenue, but that proved even greater amazing advice during the pandemic, because I had various different areas of businesses that I would focus on. And during the pandemic, while others were limited because of the pandemic, others were not. And so that level of advice of growth and development that I just remember was huge. And so in reflection, you're always thinking about those, man, who do I listen to right now? And I'm pulling on my mother's advice of growing up, that of, hey, these are the times where you got to lean in and know that you got this. These are those whiskey moments where you got to go back and say, remember, it's been lean and mean like this before. It's just a different type of experience. You still got this, you know? So I love it.
I want to run something by you, because I just came across this video on social media, and it really did cause me to reevaluate something that I've always said, specifically about jazz, because I've always said that I've appreciated and I've admired the improvisational part of jazz. And there's a video of Terrence Blanchard speaking with Gary Bartz, and Gary Bartz said, I hate when people say that jazz is about improvising, because I'm not improvising. I'm in a constant state of composing. He said, I'm thinking compositionally. I'm not just coming up with something at the spur of the moment. I've honed my craft so that I'm composing a song in the moment, right then, right there, based on what's going on around me. Now, yeah, I mean, you can squint your eye and tilt your head, and it sounds like he's saying that he's improvising, but I love the distinction that he made between improvising and composing in the moment. How does that distinction, or does that distinction hold with what you do? Are you improvising in those moments, or are you composing in the moment?
Well, the good thing that you have to have in this work is a constant mindset of growth. And so you're always composing. You're always in that moment of growth and development. I am one of those individuals, I don't know if you are, that constantly has a notebook and a pad near me. And sometimes I wake up in the morning. I was putting together a masterclass, mindset masterclass, and I got the whole download at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I had to get up and I had to write the whole download down because it was just flowing and I had to flow. And so I think you have to always have your mindset open to the possibility of growth. And that allows you to hear differently. It allows you to really live differently and behave differently. Because the second we close our ears and our minds to some of the surroundings and the environments that we are in, we may miss those very things that could take us to the next level. And when you close your heart and your mind down, then you could lose out on some opportunities that actually were given to you. And you might be saying, oh, when is it going to come? But it already came.
It came. It came. One of the things I talk about in my class, in my in-person sessions that I do, is one of the first things I do is I have my audience, wherever they are, I have them take out a pad and a pen, and I have them write down the number 67, and then I have them write down the number 24. And then I explain that when I first decided to get into this space, I did some research because I'm not managing an organization's P&L anymore. I'm not managing an organization's people anymore. I'm literally talking for a living. And so the research that I found really heightened the gravity of this work that I do. And that research suggests that we will forget 67% of what we hear in just 24 hours. So in 24 hours, you're going to forget 67% of what was said. And that's if you're trying to remember. And then in 2 days, that goes to like 80%. And in 3 days, you just remember that the brownies were nice, or whatever the case might be. And so what that says to me, and how that links to what you just said, is you've got to find a way to, as my dad used to say, you got to get it when it comes. If you don't get it when it comes, it never comes back. If it comes back, it won't come back the same way. And if you are waiting for that opportunity, if you haven't created systems to get it when it comes, you will never, ever get the full download that you were talking about. So, man, I tell you, you are just bringing so many of these concepts to life. Talk about what has sustained you in this space that you're in, because you mentioned those entrepreneurial days, those entrepreneurial months, where when it's good, and when it's bad, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What has encouraged you to stay in this war, in this battle, as opposed to taking a corporate job somewhere as a salesperson or as a manager? Why are you still in this? What encourages you?
Great question. And I'll pivot twofold in answering. First and foremost, I believe in not only the necessity of the work, the value of the work. And when you're in this space, and I'm sure you can identify with this, and when you're in this space, and for me, it's a space where if I know the space took me to want to kill myself, when I can support someone to A, not do that, and B, have next level thoughts to shift mindsets, and you can actually see that in real time when you're working with someone, the results of that is priceless, which means no one can really pay me for those type of results. But also the drive of, in this day and age, how your impact and reach can be so far much more than corporate can take you. And to constantly see the limitless boundaries of what that looks like is amazing to me. And I will offer to you that, I was living in Wisconsin up until about 3 years ago, and I recently moved to Dallas, Texas area about 3 years ago. Doing this huge pivot, I thought to myself for a moment that you may have to consider getting a corporate job until you get things settled. And even went so far as to go on a couple of interviews and, potentially get some offers, of which I turned them all down. Why, I don't know, but I did. But what was the interesting pivoting point for me is I've said to myself, and I've shown myself, and I showed myself this in the whiskey mode, that if you put your mind to it, you can make $100,000. If you put your mind to it, you can make $200,000. So you've already showed yourself what you're capable of, even when you thought you would. And so what keeps me in the space of not going back, part of it is that, okay, so if you go back, you go back with restrictions. And I can't have restrictions because restrictions filter down to the mindset. And in as much as I know when I was in corporate, how much I did work, and to the extent that they needed me to work, Why not give that same energy and time to something that fuels my purpose and passion and gets me the same results? And so every time I think about that, absence of the restrictions and barriers and boundaries, I stay where I'm at.
I love it, man. And now we're talking about restrictions, and I want to bring this into the conversation because a lot of times people will ask, namely about my personal branding of being the leadership strategist, and they're like, "What the heck? What the heck is that?" Galen, you're a coach. You're a facilitator, you're a speaker, you're an author, you're an executive. What the heck is, I know what those are. What the heck is a leadership strategist? And it's just what you described. It's when you are a certified executive coach, there are specific things that's suggesting that you're going to be doing. And there's some specific things that's suggesting that you're not going to do, right? To be true to your calling as a certified executive coach, there's some specific things, namely around giving advice, that you're not going to do. When you're a facilitator, there's almost like a separate set of rules. It's similar, but there are a separate set of rules. And then if you're an executive coach, if you're in the executive space and you're speaking to executives or leadership teams, there's a certain type of thing that you're supposed to talk about and certain things that you're not supposed to talk about. But what if you want to bring in what if the perfect example happens to be scripture? I want to be able to go wherever I need to go to drive home the point that we're needing to make for the folks that's in the room. And I'll bring in a Nietzsche quote. I'll quote some John Maxwell. I'll quote some Richard Pryor if I need to. And then I got some scripture in the back pocket. Wherever we need to go to drive home the point, I want to have the freedom to do that. And to your point, when you're working for a corporation, there are some rules that they're going to expect you to abide by within reason most of the time. But once you've had a taste of the big city, how do you go? How did it get you back on the farm? So, oh my gosh, time is getting away from us, man. Ah, gosh, what I want to pull out from your back? Okay, I got to pull this out. I'm gonna pull this out on this side of because I got to bring you into the VIP room. But this is something I would feel bad about not discussing this for everyone. Now, to do the work that we do, we all get certifications based upon the training. And so it doesn't surprise me that you got a whole lot of letters after your name as far as certifications. But you received a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award? Dude, you got to talk about that. Presidential Lifetime Achievement? I've been to Walmart a couple of times and I never found the aisle where they were selling Presidential Lifetime Achievements. What aisle should I go? What should I check? Should I check to go get one of those? 'Cause I'd like to have one of those too.
Man, it was one of the most amazing experiences to have. To this day, I don't know because they don't really tell you who nominated you. And so it's interesting because they don't tell you who nominated you, but they have your whole pedigree.
So somebody knows you really well.
Right. So someone must know me really well and submitted it. But it was an amazing experience. And I have actually right above here is the actual award and the gold medal that you get from the president and a personalized letter from the president and a certificate from the president. So I have it all framed. But it was an honor, truly a blessing. And again, one of those things where you know the work that you do is necessary, it's relevant, it's purposeful. But to get to that level of honor to say, hey, we appreciate you for that work is absolutely humbling, and very much appreciative. So It's probably one of the highest achievements that I could say that I have had from a professional standpoint, and just an honor to be able to receive it.
Now, which administration was this?
This is the current administration.
Okay. All right. All right. Man, that I can't imagine. We've had a couple people here who have had experiences. I don't know. I would suspect that you got to meet President Biden, but we have had some guests who have met Bill Clinton, who have met President Obama, and people of that stature, and they often talk about how there is this charisma, this draw, this gravity that you feel, and I think it's by the nature of the position. It probably has to do with the person as well, but just the nature of knowing this is the leader of the free world, taking a moment to say, I did all right. That's got to make you pause and say, wow, really? Me?
Absolutely.
Well, man, we have covered so much, man, but yet there is so much more to cover. And my VIPs are just so excited that you saved it all for them. So I gotta bring you into the VIP rooms. But before I do, what are some final words and thoughts that you might leave for our leaders on this side of the velvet rope? Because we've been talking to and speaking for leaders about how they can help their folks, their people, and maybe even just themselves play at a higher level than maybe they've played at in the past. So, what are some final thoughts that you might have for them?
So great, and thank you for this again. Is from a leadership standpoint, it takes a moment, just a moment, for a leader to decide that they want to be greater, that they want to be better, that they want to be stronger, that they want to have a positive influence, that they want to be next level. Just a moment to shift your mindset to decide that's what you want to do and believe in action. But I will offer to you probably one of the reasons you stay busy is that it takes a lifetime for some leaders to get to that moment. And so, what I would challenge each and every leader today is to say to yourself, today, I want to make today my moment, and I want to shift my mindset to release some of the things that aren't serving me, but build some relationships, the right relationships, even if they might be uncomfortable, to take me to the next level and do some things in the space that allows me to get there.
Okay, guys, I warned you on the front end. I remember specifically saying you were going to need a whole new notebook. So I feel very comfortable in all the gems that Mr. Nick Dillon has dropped. And man, I'll tell you, when I just reflect back on the crew that went through that emotional intelligence training, you had folks like Miss Shana Renee Hammond was one of the instructors. Dr. Peter James went through the cohort just prior to ours. You had folks like Carol Alzen Carbonez, who she was on the podcast. She brought in France for us. We had Miss Michelle Neverez, who that was her brainchild. And so she's been on the podcast. It's like all of the heavy hitters. Dr. Precious Boyle, she killed it as a guest on this podcast. And again, we set the bar high, and Nick, you just came through and just knocked the whole thing over, man. So I appreciate you coming in and just reminding me of all the incredible conversations we had just around the dinner table during that program. So, man, with that, raise your margarita. I'm gonna raise my Basil Hayden 10-year. And man, again, just thank you so much for what you're doing all around the world. We didn't even talk about all of your trips outside of the U.S. and how you're doing this in so many different environments. We're gonna get into that in the VIP room, and plus, I want to get deeper into your study and your focus around How do you shift? How do you change your beliefs? Because some of those bad boys, some of those beliefs, they just don't want to go, right? They have served us well. They've kept us safe. And as I said earlier, that's what my granddaddy told me. And so it's hard for me to go against granddaddy, although it might not make sense anymore. It's still granddaddy. So I really want to talk to you about some of the tools that you use to help your clients shift their mindset. So let's get into that in the VIP room. Until then, man, cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.